Hi there. Welcome to Heart, a podcast about all things heart related, brought to you by the physicians of Advanced Cardiovascular Specialists here in Shreveport. I'm joined by Dr. Trey Baucum. I'm Susan Curtin. Nice to see you, Dr. Baucum.
Thank you, Susan.
Let's talk about men's heart health in general. Do men tend to develop heart disease earlier than women?
Yes, men do. We're not certain exactly why, but men tend to lead women by about 10 years in the development of heart disease. And so a man's risk starts to go up pretty significantly at age 40. A women's risk really start to go up at age 50. There are a lot of exceptions to those rules, but there is a useful rule of thumb.
Now, what's the most concerning thing to you as a physician when it comes to men and their heart health?
Well, I mean, it's by far the number one killer of man, and so I'm concerned about it all the time. It's it's what I do all day.
Right.
And I've reached an age where a lot of my friends have started to get heart disease, and so I worry about them. And
Men aren't the greatest at getting checkups.
Yeah, a very interesting study also came out recently, and it showed that married men live longer than bachelors. And married men love to tease that they would love to be a bachelor, and I've heckled my wife about that and given her a hard time. But actually, if you want to live longer, be married and stay married. Even men that get divorced rather later in life and do not remarry have a higher mortality. And a lot of that is almost certainly the fact that a woman will care for a man in the sense that they'll be concerned about their health. They're more likely to make them seek medical care when they detect something's wrong. They're pretty good at saying they notice if we're more short of breath, there's something's wrong, you don't look good. They'll take them to the doctor. And then it's been my experience that a lot of times in the doctor, they're the truth teller. When you ask the man, how do you feel? He says, great, no problem. And the woman says, no, every time he goes to get the mail, he's short of breath. Or every time he does this, he has chest pain and he won't tell you about it.
Do you find men do that? They mask their symptoms. They don't want to tell their doctors they're not doing well.
It's not just men. I mean, women do that too. And a lot of times the men have to out the women, but more likely it's a sister or a mother that is saying, no, tell them the truth. But in husband and wife teams, I would say a lot of times the man is in denial and the wife is there to make sure he tells the doctor the truth.
Yeah. But there are certain things that go undetected, obviously. So there's a survey by the American Academy of Family Physicians, and more than half the men don't get regular checkups.
And that's true, and there are a lot of reasons for that. One, of course, is denial. I mean, men want to pretend like there's nothing wrong. They want to think, well, I'm too tough to get extra Y. And a lot of times it's time constraints. Both men and women work, of course, but a lot of times men feel a tremendous amount of pressure to be the breadwinner. They don't want to take time off for something silly like going to the doctor, and they feel like it's unnecessary, a waste of their time. And of course, nothing is further from the truth. If you're incapacitated by heart disease, or God forbid you die of a heart attack, you're not going to be any help to your family then. And so you have to take it seriously. You have to make time for your health. But I do think men are much more likely to postpone health care and put health care off than women.
And some people can feel invincible. I can drink or eat whatever I want.
Yeah, and we see that a lot of times in youth. And of course, heart disease starts a lot earlier than people realize. There was a very interesting study, even when I was in medical school, from the Bogalusa Heart Study. And they did a long longitudinal study, just like the Framingham Heart Study. And what they showed was that in Louisiana, people started forming plaque in their aorta in their teens. 14 and 15-year-olds would already be developing plaque. And so it starts young. It takes a long time to show up, but you're not invincible, and you need to take care of your heart and your body starting now.
And obviously diet plays into that. And there's some really simple things that people can do to change out some of the bad things. Instead of using a ham hock, use a little liquid smoke and things like that. Instead of fat, maybe use a little maple syrup. They can make simple changes and still have the quality of life and the food that they love.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I love food. My wife's a great cook. She does all the cooking in our household. We both enjoy good food. So you don't have to give up good food. But I do think fast food is killing Americans. And I mean all of it. When people look back and they say, God, when you look at these film clips from 1930, no one was fat. And, well, there was no fast food. I really think it's as simple as that. I mean, fast food is made to be so good that you eat more of it than you need to. It is packed with calories, fat, and salt, all of which you don't need in excess. And I really think that that is the biggest problem with the heart disease epidemic in America, which includes diabetes also. The density of calories that children are getting is causing type 2 diabetes. Sugary drinks, these just sugar bombs are causing that. And then in a little bit older children, young adults, and then even adults now, fast food is terrible for you. And so that's always my first rule. If you're going to do one thing for your diet, quit eating fast food. Prepare your own food. The fresher it is, the better. And along those lines, they once again just came out with a study. I'm not kidding when I say this. These are all been recent. And of course, they're always comparing diets. There's diet news every day. Somebody's got some new diet. But every once in a while, they do a large meta-analysis on diets. And this one was not a little surprising, although some of it was a little bit of a shock to me. But the Mediterranean diet is by far the best diet to lower your risk of heart attack and stroke. And it's an excellent longevity diet. And they tested it against much more fatty diets like a very high protein diet, very high fat, low protein diets, intermittent fasting, the Pritikin diet, and the Ornish diet. And the Pritikin diet and the Ornish diet have been mainstays for cardiovascular care. And I'm not down on them. They're still excellent diets. And this was one study, and you have to take every single study with a grain of salt. But it did reinforce the Mediterranean diet. And when you back up from the Mediterranean diet a little bit, you go, what's special about it? And some of it is it's high in fish, it's high in fresh fruits and berries, it's high in nuts, it's high in olive oil as opposed to other forms of fat. But also, the true Mediterranean diet is almost always fresh ingredients. It's fresh fish, fresh vegetables, fresh fruits. And I think that may be a big part of the underlying issue, because I'm not an anti-beef person. I love beef. I think that, particularly if it's healthy raised and non-hormone injected, there's good beef. In moderation, I think it is not that harmful. But I'm not talking about processed meats. There's a difference between that and, bacon, for instance. And so if it's fresh ingredients, then I think it's much safer. Fast food, I'm afraid, is just bad.
Yeah. And as you said, in the 1930s, additionally, people were moving around more. They had more physical activity. They couldn't sit in their chair and order food or talk to someone or, have a doctor visit.
So life expectancy in the United States is worse than the G7. It's worse than the other industrialized nations. Our life expectancy in America is going down. This goes back to some stuff we talked about with COVID. Some of it is attributable to COVID and to the response to COVID, because COVID hit worldwide, but the response to COVID only happened in certain countries, including America, where we told you to not go outside, don't exercise, don't go to restaurants, don't eat fresh food because you couldn't go to the grocery store. So people sat inside, didn't exercise, worried, and ate bad food. Also, getting back to your exercise point, the other big factor in America is that we're an automotive nation. We're addicted to our cars, and our cities are set up to drive, not walk. And that is a big difference between the 1930s and now, and a big difference between, for instance, even a country like France. The French paradox: why do French people not get heart disease like Americans, even though they smoke and eat cheese with every meal? Well, because on average they walk 6 miles a day. And so it is as simple as that. It's as simple as walk more, eat fresh food, take care of yourself. But it's embarrassing that the country with the best healthcare system in the world, I feel, our mortality is going up, our age-adjusted mortality is going up, and our longevity is going down. And that's almost all lifestyle choices.
Well, we talk about exercise, we talk about diet. Men tend to bottle up their stress and shove it down, and they eat their feelings, right? And they should be eating better things. But they say that that contributes to heart disease. And obviously, exercise is a great stress reliever.
Yeah, it's a perfect way to kill two birds with one stone. Men do, people worry about the type A personality person. That actually ends up, it is a risk. People that are type A, very tightly wound, do get heart disease. They have high blood pressure. But on the other hand, they're better about addressing some of their problems. Type D personalities, people that internalize their emotional stress, are probably at highest risk because they do tend to, stress will make us overeat. It can lead to depression, which makes us less likely to exercise. And ironically, a great stress reducer is exercise. A great antidepressant is exercise. Exercise has recently been shown to be as effective as many SSRIs, the most commonly used antidepressants, at reducing depression. And so getting outside, fresh air, sunshine, and getting a little exercise is a good antidepressant. It's good for your heart. It's like everything comes back to your mother's advice. Eat your vegetables, go outside and exercise.
Right, go play.
Exactly.
So top takeaways today for men's health.
Get off fast food. Like I said, we've been harping on the anti-smoking thing for years. If people are still smoking, they've made a choice to do that. I'm not sure people realize how bad pre-processed food is for them.
That's a great one. Thanks so much, Doc. For more information, go to acsdoctors.com.